Stockton, California. My son named James Rivera was murdered by two Stockton police and a sheriff. They shot at my son 48 times.
That's a lie! They don't care if black is dying! Protect and serve! That's a lie! They don't care if black is dying!
My son was 16. It's the day before his 17th birthday. And I take this personal. By this young man been murdered in Florida. I know how that mother feels to know she'll never, ever see her son graduate from school. He'll never see his brother and sister or his mother. I'm seeking justice for my son.
That's right.
We don't get no justice. We don't get no peace. We don't get no justice. We don't get no peace. We don't get no justice.
I have went to the lawyer's office last week, and what the DA was asking my lawyer that they need my birth certificate, and I'm like, what?
Okay.
With my birth certificate, you murdered my son. That's right. That's right. And so I just want y'all to pray with us and keep looking on Facebook, because we're having the next protest in Stockton, April 10th. If y'all can come out and support us, we're going to be at the City Hall and the Stockton Courthouse asking for justice. My husband has 3 words to say, please.
Justice! For Trayvon Martin! Justice! For Trayvon Martin! Justice! For Trayvon Martin! Justice! Trayvon Martin! Justice!
He said that black people in the rural South lived under a death sentence. A death sentence that might be carried out, or it might not be carried out, but it hung over your head nonetheless. And black mothers had to teach their children not to be too surly, not to be too creative, not to have too much energy or rambunctiousness, all the qualities that all youth have, right? Mothers, we hear people in the projects today, mothers in the projects that say they're fearful of their kids, their young male kids growing up to be too large. What happened? Because they're fearful of what might happen to a large black male in America in 2012. What kind of system is this? A system badly in need of revolution.
I guess as everybody can see, another tragedy happened.
If the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution had a soundtrack, the right to bear arms would best be recognized by gunfire. The land of the free is the most heavily armed nation in the world, with 294 million firearms floating around America.
Hi, I'm Chuck Norris, a black belt patriot. If some thug breaks into my home, I could use my roundhouse kick, but I'd prefer he look down the barrel of my gun.
In a reported 30 states, a U.S. doctrine known as the Castle Law allows homeowners to shoot and kill intruders without becoming liable to prosecution. Since 2005, the freedom for gun owners to point and shoot in the name of self-defense has widened under controversial legislation known as the Stand Your Ground law. Experts say it allows gun owners to use deadly force to protect themselves in public, essentially delivering a license to kill.
It tells people, you know what, if you're in a confrontation on the street with someone or getting into an argument or there's a physical altercation, even if you could safely retreat from that and just walk away and go home, you don't have to. We're going to let you shoot and potentially kill another human being, and then the law will not only provide you with immunity from criminal prosecution, but also immunity from any future civil litigations.
Stand Your Ground first became law in Florida, but recently received national attention following the deadly shooting of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. The unarmed student was carrying candy and an iced tea when he was shot dead by a neighborhood watch volunteer. Police released the gunman, George Zimmerman, without charges.
Trayvon was our son, but Trayvon is your son.
That's right.
A lot of people can relate to our situation, and it breaks their heart just like it breaks mine.
He's sadly missed, and we'll continue to fight for justice for him.
Since Stand Your Ground took effect, the number of so-called justifiable homicides in Florida have tripled. As Martin's parents mourn the loss of their son, U.S. gun laws remain historically loose. In many states, citizens with criminal records and prior restraining orders are still able to receive gun permits. Critics say easy access comes courtesy of the National Rifle Association, or NRA, a gun rights organization and notoriously powerful U.S. lobbying group that reportedly spent more than $7 million on political ads during the 2010 U.S. midterm election.
Paid for by the NRA.
Everything that the NRA pushes at the state and federal level is designed to sell more weapons. That's what this is about. There's a lot of money thrown around, whether it's NRA campaign contributions to Florida politicians or corporate money that can be spread around a number of different ways.
Since 2005, the Stand Your Ground law has been adopted in 25 states throughout America.
Since 1968, when Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy were assassinated, we're talking about 1 million people in our country, Americans, who have been the victims of gun violence, murdered. And so, you know, as the most powerful nation on the planet, the richest nation on the planet, and in some people's minds, the most democratic nation on the planet, clearly something is wrong if you continue to have people shooting each other who call themselves Americans.
Since 9/11, U.S. civil liberties and freedom have suffered in the name of national security, while new gun laws have simultaneously made it easier for Americans to arm themselves, leaving the land of liberty locked and loaded. Marina Portnaya, RT, New York.
Hi, it's Dwyer. Keeping it free. .blogspot.com. If you want to see what a guy who wears hoodies looks like, just watch this video. In fact, before this incident took place, I made several videos in which I was discussing boxing while wearing a hoodie. This is the United States of America. You get equal protection under the laws regardless of what you're wearing, right? There's no lower burden of proof. There's no diminution of your constitutional rights if you happen to be a black man wearing a hoodie. Now, with all due respect to Geraldo Rivera, someone I grew up watching on New York TV, and with all due respect to Fox News, which continues to push this hoodie angle as part of a top-down agenda, or so it seems, there's nothing wrong with lawfully walking down the street while holding Skittles, while holding a can of Arizona iced tea, and while being a black man wearing a hoodie. Right? Every time someone mentions this hoodie angle, you need to realize that there's an agenda attached to it that seems to suggest that people who wear hoodies have less protection under our laws, and that's simply not the way things operate. right? This is a free country. Let's keep it free. Now let's talk about what's been happening in the news lately. George Zimmerman's defense, which quite frankly doesn't square with some of the evidence. Right now, the defense is that Zimmerman, who there is tape of, right? There is a recording of his telephone conversation with the police where he says that he was following Trayvon Martin. Then, of course, there's the tone of the tape, right? Zimmerman, at one point in the tape, is huffing and puffing. Clearly, he is not just following Trayvon Martin. He is actively pursuing Trayvon Martin, right? So we know that this encounter is caused, at least in part, by George Zimmerman stalking Trayvon Martin, right? You can't look at the totality of the evidence and ignore the audio tapes that we have that are recorded. Well, understand, there is a witness who was on the phone with Trayvon Martin up until Trayvon's phone earpiece fell out of his ear. Now, Trayvon, apparently it started to rain a little bit. Let's get the full evidence. Trayvon's on the phone with his girlfriend. Trayvon ducks in under a little overpass to avoid the rain. Trayvon tells his girlfriend there is someone following him. Now understand, there is an age dynamic here. Zimmerman's in his late 20s. Trayvon is a teenager. I believe he's 17 years old. So this is a young person getting pursued by an older person. There's also a size dynamic here, right? Trayvon weighs, I believe, less than 170 pounds. George Zimmerman weighs about 250 pounds. So this is a teenager being stalked by a much bigger, older gentleman. Now, according to the girlfriend, Trayvon says to her that someone is following him, right? She tells him to run. The timeline actually syncs with the timeline from the police conversation with Zimmerman, right? She tells Trayvon to run. Zimmerman, on the police tape, after being told by the police people not to follow him, starts huffing and puffing. He literally starts pursuing Trayvon. Understand, if Trayvon starts running and Zimmerman doesn't run, nothing happens. I'm not here online making this video. Right now, understand, when Zimmerman catches up to Trayvon, right? Trayvon at some point stops running. Trayvon is still on the phone with his girlfriend, right? As you hear the spin out there in the community, just understand that when Zimmerman encounters Trayvon Martin, he is still on the phone. We know the exchange between the two guys, right? Trayvon, who Zimmerman's defense team now wants you to believe attacked Zimmerman, right? Trayvon asked Zimmerman, this is according to Trayvon's girlfriend who was on the phone with him, why are you following me? You know, I would argue that that's a reasonable question, right? Some big guy comes up on you, right? You're younger, you don't know the guy. This might be a case of mistaken identity. He says, why are you following me? Zimmerman, incredibly, says to him, what are you doing around here? Think about that line. Think about the intent behind that line, right? Let me just say too, I don't know why we're giving so much credence to the idea that Zimmerman is on neighborhood patrol. Because he's not a cop, and even if he were a cop would have absolutely no probable cause to harass a guy who just happens to be walking down the street with a bag of Skittles, drinking an iced tea. I mean, come on. You know, so Zimmerman says, "What are you doing around here?" And what does Trayvon respond? Trayvon responds by asking him, "Why are you following me?" That's the last line we know that Trayvon said. I would argue that that evidence is inconsistent with George Zimmerman's story that Trayvon attacked him. The only thing Trayvon attacked him with were intelligent questions asking what Zimmerman was doing, why Zimmerman was following him. Right? That's all Trayvon did. Well, after that, we know there's a scuffle. I believe the media is misreporting Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Understand who has a legal basis to stand their ground. The guy who is pursuing an innocent guy, right, without any probable cause while carrying a firearm, or the guy who's just on his way home holding a bag of Skittles, a can of iced tea, minding his business, talking on the phone with his girlfriend, right? Who exactly is standing their ground here? I would argue that it's the guy who's minding his business who then has to deal with the older, heavier stalker. So let me just say this. You know, if Trayvon Martin did defend himself, hold his ground, and if George Zimmerman did get his nose broken, understand that that evidence is not inconsistent with Trayvon Martin being a victim of a violent crime. I mean, literally being a murder victim, right? I would argue that there are many guys out there, myself among them, who if I'm walking down the street minding my own business and some heavy-set guy is stalking me and comes up and tries to corner me and asks me a question of, "What are you doing around here?" I think it's fair to expect me to feel like I have to defend myself. Now, Thomas Sowell, a Hoover Institute fellow, I went to Stanford. I have the utmost respect for Thomas Sowell. He's written a piece where, of course, he criticizes Trayvon for wearing a hoodie. But more importantly, he himself admits that he was once out and he actually had to pull a gun on a guy because the guy was pursuing him, coming up on him. It's the only time in Thomas Sowell's life that he had to pull a gun on a guy. Let me just say that the facts that Sowell, in a piece that isn't that sympathetic toward Trayvon Martin, the facts that Sowell posits in that piece, and I would encourage everyone to look it up. Sowell is spelled Sowell, right? He's one of the giants in the world of economics. The facts that Thomas Sowell posits in that piece literally mirror what happened to Trayvon Martin here, according to what his girlfriend heard on the other end of the phone. And let me just say, Sowell took his gun out to defend himself from a possible would-be attacker. He says the only reason he didn't squeeze the trigger was because the would-be attacker froze and didn't do another thing. Now here, all I can say is the pursuer's George Zimmerman, according to the evidence we're learning from Trayvon's girlfriend, the pursuer's George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin simply wants to know, why are you following me? As this bigger guy comes up on him. Just like Thomas Sowell pulled his gun, if Trayvon Martin decided he had to defend himself, well, isn't that what Florida's Stand Your Ground law is about? Right? If we're going to discuss Florida's Stand Your Ground law, it doesn't work in Zimmerman's favor. He's the pursuer. Doesn't it really work in Trayvon Martin's favor? In fact, doesn't the pro-Zimmerman media spin have this exactly backward? Let me also say this about the Stanford police. If you know that a guy on tape uses racial slurs right before killing a black guy and has a gun, isn't that a guy who you would at least arrest to get him off the streets while you continue your investigation? You know, if you have an ear witness, not an eyewitness, but an ear witness, who literally is telling you that her deceased boyfriend complained about being stalked, and then she heard him say to this guy, "Why are you following me?" And the guy says to him, "What are you doing around here?" Doesn't that piece of evidence alone warrant George Zimmerman's arrest? And let me finally just say this too. Just as if a witness saw Thomas Sowell shoot a would-be attacker, just as if that evidence wouldn't show that Sowell wasn't acting in self-defense, so too does evidence of Trayvon Martin wrestling with George Zimmerman not establish that Trayvon Martin, who we know was being pursued, right? You have an ear witness, you also have this police tape of George Zimmerman talking to police. We know he's being pursued. We know that Zimmerman pursued him after the police told him to stop, right? The fact that these two men are seen wrestling, that doesn't negate the fact that Martin might have been pursued and might have felt that he had no choice but to stand his ground. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at keepingitfree.blogspot.com and also gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.
Hi guys, today's video is definitely different than probably any video I've ever done. I'm not doing a natural hair video. I had to touch on this topic because I'm a mother, I'm a citizen, and I've worked with law enforcement before. And I failed to hear. That's why I had to do this video. If you haven't heard the story, if you don't know the story of Trayvon Martin, then definitely Google it. Turn on CNN right now. A young 17-year-old boy who is black was murdered in Florida by a man. Last name is Zimmerman. I think his first name is George Zimmerman. He did shoot and kill this 17-year-old boy. He was a neighborhood watchman, the Zimmerman guy, and he saw Trayvon walking through a gated community and saw him to be suspicious. He had a hoodie on just like the one that I am wearing now, which made him suspicious. There wasn't any reports of a burglary in progress. No one had broken into his home. He was just watching the neighborhood, and because this boy was in his neighborhood with a hoodie on, he looked suspicious. So Mr. Zimmerman picked up the phone, dialed 911, and 911 told him to stay put because he was at this point in time running after Trayvon, who had taken off running after he saw Mr. Zimmerman looking at him. Several minutes later, after the 911 had already told him to stay where he was, after he had apprehended Trayvon, he was shot and killed by Mr. Zimmerman, and this man has still not been arrested. I had to do a video on this after watching CNN, seeing some of the comments that some of these Republican politicians have basically gone on there to say. I also watched a few videos where people were commenting back and forth that this isn't a race issue. The politicians were definitely, trying to say this isn't a race issue. It's a race issue, okay? Anytime you're suspicious just because you have brown skin or you're black, you have dark skin and you have a hoodie on, which is a profile supposedly for being black now. Not that it was raining outside and that a person trying to cover their head, at the end of winter, early spring, and it's raining outside and it's nighttime, that the two don't go hand in hand. The little boy the teenager had Skittles in his pocket when he was murdered. He didn't have a weapon. And there are reports that this Zimmerman cat was only like 5'9", and Trayvon was like 6'3". He played football, so he was, very tall person. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't know the last time I ran up on somebody that was like 3, 4, 5 inches taller than me, unless I was pretty confident that I had a weapon in my pocket or without a shadow of a doubt that I could take them down. You know what I'm saying? So, and then this coward called 911 almost as if he set it up to kill somebody. It was almost like he wanted to kill someone. Who stands outside on neighborhood watch with a loaded gun in their pocket? I mean, it takes a lot to shoot a gun off. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with weapons, but for a gun to go off, you have to do a lot. Like, put the bullets inside of the clip, put the clip in the gun, take the safety off, then you have to pull the trigger back, and then you actually have to shoot the gun. You know what I'm saying? Or pull the thingy-majig back, and then you actually have to pull the gun. I'm just so upset right now, I can't even remember all the pieces on the gun. I think I'm most upset about the fact that people want to act like this ain't a race issue. This is a race issue. Racism still exists. And I'm asking for anybody out there who has any kind of compassion to do what you can. I just felt like this wasn't something that I could sit back and just not say anything about. Racism does still exist. For you people out there who are going to definitely be voting soon, turn on your television right now. Anytime a representative who's vying for the position of the President of the United States of America tries to downplay and say that racism doesn't have anything to do with looking suspicious, that this issue is not a race issue, I guarantee you, had Trayvon looked like Harry Potter, homeboy would be in jail right now. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just so angry, almost as if I knew Trayvon. It's like, it sickens me to think that you can still do this in this country. You know what I'm saying? And just do what you feel you should do. And I'm doing right now what I feel I should do. I look crazy. Hey guys, I have a guest appearance here. This is my daughter. And yeah, she's natural as well. She's about to be 14. And this subject hit home with Trayvon Martin. So, what did you think about it when you heard the story?
First, I didn't know if it was true, but it was kind of sad because I just thought about my brother and if something would have happened to him.
So, how do kids dress at your school?
To be honest, the kids at my school don't even know about Trayvon Martin. That's what's really sad to me.
Yeah.
People know about video games, but they don't know about a murder and that the person who murdered him wasn't arrested. So,
Do your friends dress like Trayvon at school?
pants and a hoodie, basically, yeah.
That's like normal kid attire.
Anybody who just wants to dress regular and doesn't really want to dress up, that's what we do.
So how do you feel about the whole situation?
Well, I think, to be honest, it's unreal, because just the fact that this like racism is still going on, just like,
Oh, so you do feel that this is racism?
of course. If you look at the video, he says they always get away. I don't know what is it, somebody else outside that he could have been talking about?
When you say he said, who are you talking about?
What's his name? Zimmerman?
Zimmerman? The guy who shot him?
Yes. Yes. He says they always get away. I really don't know what else he could be talking about. So,
what about those politicians that were running for the Republican nominee for president? What did you think about them when they said on CNN that this isn't a black and white issue, that this should be, that the president, Barack Obama, like, saying that if he had a son, he would look like Trayvon? Like, what did you think about them saying the president is trying to divide the country, he shouldn't be saying stuff like that because this isn't a race issue? How'd you feel about that?
to be honest, I like, I'm a child, so it's like, I think it's nonsense. One, because President Obama is still a person and he still has feelings. And if it was Bush, he would have said the same thing. If he was white, if he was a white male, and if he was wearing a hoodie, it would. I don't know how to explain it, because if he was white or a Caucasian male wearing a hoodie, it would have been all over the news. But since he's an African American and President Obama says something about it, it's such a big deal, and then he's out of his place. But nobody else is trying
talking
to,
about it, really.
nobody else is trying to make it aware to everybody else that this is going on.
Yeah, I feel like if Homeboy would have been, I feel like if Trayvon was white, to be honest, I think that we may not have known this story. It may have just unfortunately been another murder, and the guy would have been arrested, and it would have been on the local news, but it never would have hit national news coverage. But, you know, I just feel like this is my own way of speaking out and saying that it's not okay, that I'm very aware that even in 2012, having a black president, that there's still a lot of things that need to happen in order for us to all, you know, live in equality. And I definitely think that this one story, we shouldn't let that, you know, keep us from being proud of all of the milestones we've overcome, especially with having a black president. But I also think we need to be very aware of that as well. You know, we have an election year coming up, and to hear some of these other politicians speak out in the manner they're speaking out, as if because we were able to elect a black president that racism doesn't occur on a very basic and a very at-home level, is absurd. It's absurd. Okay? It does exist. I've experienced more racism now that I live further on the East Coast than I ever did living in the South, which is kind of crazy. I tell people that story all the time, and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it still exists. And that doesn't undo all the relationships I have with, you know, people who are not racist, but it still makes me very aware, and it makes me appreciate. And I think the biggest injustice we can do to all the people who have paved the way is to forget. Don't forget, you know, that the liberties you have to go to school and to have an equal education, the liberties we have to live in the same communities, those things were not given to us. People fought and died for those liberties. And when things like this happen, stand up. stand up, say something, do something. Don't just sit back and think that the status quo is cool, because your kids can have the same opportunities to go to certain schools, and you can make the same amount if you apply yourself and blah, blah, freaking blah. Because guess what? At the end of the day, there's still situations like this happening, showing you that even though it may not be on a frontal surface level like, hey, nigger, the fact is that just now when I said that, I'm pretty sure it probably raised a few hairs on your arm, because it's, people still think that way. Just don't forget. Don't forget. Don't let this be another story that you just say, oh, too bad, so sad, I can't do anything. So, all right. I know Mommy just went on a rant.
Rants, like always, but...
like always?
Yeah, I'm a teenager, and I don't really like to do anything but talk on the phone and watch TV, and really don't want to do anything. But this is something that I'm going to do something about. I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to make it aware. And I am writing a letter to whoever I have to make sure that justice is brought. Because if one of my friends was murdered, I'd be out there throwing rocks at people for all I know. And
no, you wouldn't be throwing rocks.
I'd be throwing rocks.
No, you wouldn't. Non-violence.
Non-violence, exactly. So why is Zimmerman, whatever his name is, why is he still out of jail? There's not enough proof. If you listen to the audio tapes, he is screaming. The boy is screaming. And I don't know what in your right mind, like, I don't care about, to be honest, I don't care about the law. He should be arrested. Like,
But you have to care about the law.
Why do you have to care about, at this point?
Because it helps protect.
Oh my gosh. You see, this is where my teenager,
I know, you can't listen, don't be listening to her, okay?
No,
remember, she's a teenager.
No, because
non-violence people, non-violence.
I be throwing
baby,
rocks at
you
people.
can't just be like throwing rocks at people.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
He shot a gun. He shot a gun.
Like Dr. King said, okay, you get way more done by what? You can't be like, you can't justify violence with violence. You don't get anything done that way.
Yes,
no violence,
you
people.
do.
Anyways.
Just don't get caught and you'll be fine.
Wow. Right. Do not listen to her, okay? Do not listen to her. And all you other 13, 14-year-olds, do not listen to her. I know that's how you feel inside, but you can't accomplish anything. And I taught you better than that. You can't accomplish anything, but she is being candid. Violence with violence, it doesn't solve anything. But we're going to cut this video short. She did give you her honest opinion, which is probably what she's feeling inside, which is what a lot of people were feeling inside. I saw in some of the comments for videos, but I just don't remember the last time I ran up on somebody that was way bigger than me. That still surprises me. So, anyways, I
want to say the ending. Okay, bye everybody. This is Corn Me, and I just want to say God bless to everybody and good night.
No, I don't say that.
You're like, hey guys, this is Corn Me. I'm gonna tell you about my new natural curly hair and this
butter. Wow, she's trying to clown me. Anyways, guys, remember Trayvon Martin. Thanks for watching.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Trayvon. Peace. And God bless.